All right, good morning. Rob Brown here, broadcasting live from Memphis. Big show today. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, tap on it in the bottom right-hand corner. We're live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. 7 channels simultaneously at the same time. Brendan Martin, executive producer down in Marion County.
Ocala, Florida.
Horse capital of the world, Kentucky, folks. Argue that all you want, but it's the limestone in the soil. We got him wearing that Hewlett and Dunn hat. Guy, we got a lot of people watching the show. Chris Campbell, David Douglas, Jimmy McDavid out in Dallas. Memphis guys living out west. Look, we're going to cover a lot of ground today. We're going to start off batting in the leadoff position. Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis, along with the AD at ULM, John Hartwell. We'll be talking a lot about the rankings, the playoffs. You pick it. We'll talk about it. Also, Gary Harris down in Tuscaloosa, Tider Insider TV, Channel 23 and Tide 100.9. And Jake Wimberly checks in, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive in Jackson, Mississippi. So going to cover a lot of ground. Glad to have you on board. Get pen and paper handy. A lot to talk about today. We're going to talk with a lot of really smart people. So pay attention. You definitely will learn something. There's no might to it. You will learn something. And Coach Matt Dean, listen, man, had a great time over there. I recommend anyone, if they're on the campus at Rhodes, eating that cafeteria. I had the tacos. I think they were like a vegan taco or something. I thought it was meat. I didn't know better. But when I was a kid, I used to eat soy burgers at the Mid-South Stadium, Liberty Bowl Stadium now, Simmons Bank Liberty Bowl. And they're not too bad, Matt. But I tell you what, I watched the playoff rankings like you did and Brenda did Tuesday night, and John Hartwell did. We all watched those playoff rankings, and they're doing exactly what they're designed to do. Elicit a lot of response and conversation and downright anger from a lot of people about, where teams are ranked. But they all play each other. A lot of them do. So it all works itself out. Gentlemen, I'll start with you, Matt. Agree or disagree?
Well, I always agree with you, Rob. Good morning to you. Good morning, John.
I'm not going to pull the plug.
Hey, listen. The thing about when we increase the size of these conferences, and let's look at the SEC and the Big Ten, and John knows this because he's been involved with this a long time, but you're not going to, in a schedule, you're not going to play everybody, right? And there's going to be certain schedules that are favorable. Let's go to the Big Ten for a second. And look at Indiana. I think their strength of schedule or strength of rank is like 106. I can't sure on which statistic. But for the most part, they've really passed the eye test. Now this weekend in Columbus against the Buckeyes, really big game. And a lot of people are talking about this game in terms of, okay, we're going to find out if Indiana's the real deal. And I think they are. I think this is going to be a competitive game. But there is the chance that, let's say, this thing goes sideways on them. Does that put them at a 10-1 team, only lost of the year at Ohio State, out of the rankings? And that's a lot of people think they have to keep it close. And but you're going by their schedule. Now I'll look at Texas, for example. You go down Texas's schedule, Rob. They've probably had one of the most favorable SEC schedules out there. Now, I think Texas passes the eye test wonderfully, so I have no issues with Texas. They are third. Georgia, if you look at Clemson, you look at the Alabama game, you look at they won at Texas. They had a convincing win against Tennessee. They lost Ole Miss. I think they're 3-2 against ranked opponents, and they're still only at 10. So they have 2 losses, but the reality is, if you're at some of the eye test matters, there's no way I would favor Indiana in a game against Georgia. That's just the way I perceive it. Now, Georgia wins out. They get to 10-2. I'm not sure about the tiebreakers, who's going to the SEC championship game. Georgia's in. In my opinion, Georgia's in. Even if they would get to the SEC championship game and lose the third game and they end up 10-3, in my mind, Georgia's in. I think they've played one of the most brutal schedules, on the road at Ole Miss, and on the road to Alabama. And not just the Alabama game was intriguing because you're down early big and you come back late and take the lead. Yeah. That just shows you what that team's made of. Now, the Ole Miss game, I thought Ole Miss was dominant defensively in that ball game. And another thing I'll throw out here, I'm just really, man, if I'm a Florida fan right now, I'm excited about the future. I really am. I thought,
holy cow.
They took it to LSU in the second half of that football game. I'll tell you, you talk about an interesting game this week. I think it's Ole Miss at Florida. Wow.
Yeah. I don't think there's any. Yeah. Matt, along that line, if you're Billy Napier, you want this one in ways that only coaches can imagine.
Right.
So it's going to be fun.
And here's the thing. You got a young quarterback, Lagway, that loves you. And in many regards, Lagway's the reason Billy Napier is going to fulfill that contract, I think, because he's a star and he backs his coach and he's performed on the field. There was I believe it was a third down throw, John, that he stepped up in the pocket and threw a laser downfield late in the football game, middle fourth quarter, that really another touchdown and really kind of sealed the deal. And, while we're talking that game, well, how disappointed are you right now if you're an LSU fan, right? 6-4, is that the record we have right now? That's for Brian Kelly, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, LSU's got 3 losses in a row. John, you and I were both down in Auburn last weekend for the game, and here we are going into week 13. We still don't even know who's going to be in Atlanta, and this is the kind of season with the portal creating a lot of angst and NIL as well. This is the kind of season college football needed, isn't it? Because there's excitement everywhere. ULM, y'all have got to you got Arkansas State up in the Borough Saturday. You got to get 6 to get that bowl. And you get those extra 20 days of practice. I know the players love the extra 20 days of practice, but the coaches damn sure do. You're muted, John. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
Brendan was asleep at the wheel there in the studio. But good morning, guys. As always, good to join y'all. Some very keen insight there from Matt. But I'll talk about us just for a minute. Yeah, we're headed that way. Actually, staying at the Peabody tomorrow night, Matt. So
fantastic.
Some rendezvous ribs tomorrow evening. Hey, I'll call you offline and see about maybe coffee Saturday morning. I don't know what your schedule is, but
I'm open.
I'll give you a shout. But 2 games left at Jonesboro Saturday, and then back home against Lafayette on the 30th. So excited about that. We feel really good about the opportunity in Jonesboro. They clinched bowl eligibility last week, but we think we've got a great opportunity to get to 6 and even 7 too. So, when you look at these games, fascinating. I mean, you look around and you think about coaches' hot seats, and y'all mentioned LSU and sitting at 6-4. Hey, and the Vanderbilt Commodores come to Tiger Stadium Saturday night. That game, you talk about the seat going from warm to smoking hot if they end up losing 4 in a row there, which could very well happen. And then you talk about that Florida Ole Miss game, which so many storylines in it, not the least of which, let's rewind 6 weeks ago, and everybody was talking about Billy Napier being gone, Lane Kiffin going to Florida, and now those two are playing each other. And what you would have thought, again, 6 weeks ago would have been a blowout, I think has an opportunity to be an unbelievable football game. And again, the conversation that came up in Oxford after they lost to Kentucky earlier in the season, I promise you that same conversation would come up tenfold should the Gators have, success and win the game Saturday in Gainesville.
Yeah. And guys, when we think about it, the playoff rankings, you've got 4 of the top 6 are Big Ten teams. And so that's making a lot of fans frustrated, but again, look how many TV sets are in that Big Ten geographical footprint. Looking at that matchup, Matt, you talked about Ohio State. Indiana goes to Ohio State. I think I don't think that Indiana's played anybody higher than 58th, in strength of schedule. On their strength of schedule is not that strong.
No.
And they play Purdue in their last game. So that's not going to help them any. You think this is a one-time audition for Indiana if they lose? I mean, I think even with the loss, they still are in the playoffs at 11-1.
I don't know what John thinks about this, but I'm torn because I think they're one of the greatest stories this year in college football. You look at what Cincinnati has done up there, Kurt Cincinnati. But, looking at the comments, like even some of our viewers, I mean, right now, I don't think the committee's got it right. I think if they lose, let's say they lose by 2 scores, and I'm Tennessee, and you look at Tennessee's body of work and some of the wins they have, and I know Tennessee didn't have a glorious non-conference schedule either. Let's make that's sure. But they also got a win against Alabama, okay?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good win. And Alabama, I think, is steady at the 7th spot, if I'm not mistaken. So how do I, John, if I'm on that committee, let's say Indiana loses 2 or 3 scores, right? And it comes down to Tennessee and Indiana. How do I pick those two? I personally would go with the SEC all the time just because I know the quality of opponents that they play. But I'll tell you, it's interesting. This time of year, guys, everyone is so beat up. Everyone's playing with injuries. Everyone's looking forward to, if they got a bye week, to get a little rest, even though some coaches don't like bye weeks. I think this time of year, it came at the right time for Oregon Ducks. You saw last week, they went into a tough venue and found a way to win a football game. Rob, last year, Alabama led Michigan 20-13 with, 4 minutes to go in the semifinal game?
Correct.
Now, let's also rewind when Alabama probably should have lost to your Auburn Tigers, Rob, and they weren't even a bowl team, if I'm not mistaken, last year, right? So,
well, Auburn did go to a bowl, but they didn't show up. The team did not make it.
I'm sorry, they did. But my point is,
awful.
In these games, weeks 10 through 12, sometimes it's just a snapshot of the bigger picture, because the reality is I've got tape on you. I can plan. I can scheme for you. Yeah. And if you're banged up and I'm at home and it's a night game like it was, I believe, last year, anything can happen. So it's just survive in advance. So another team that I think, if you want to compare Penn State's resume to a lot of SEC teams, I'll take the SEC teams, because right now Penn State, they have a victory over Illinois, who jumped back into rankings at 25, could not even score an offensive touchdown in a loss at home to Ohio State. I'll tell you an interesting game. A lot of people don't even think this is a game that can matter, but Penn State's at Minnesota this weekend, guys. I just know on the road, Minnesota, at home, Minnesota's a different beast. They're 6-4. They're not an elite team. But PJ Fleck gets his guys to play extremely hard. This may be their Super Bowl. If you see a Penn State stub their toe, SEC gets 5. If you see Indiana get blown out, SEC gets 5. That's just my opinion.
All right, that's kind of the theme of this morning's show, is how does the SEC get 5 teams in there? We got some really smart people that watch this show. I hear from them. A lot of them text me, and we talk, and Bob Poole, committee does not care about strength of schedule or SOR. That is why SEC must leave. Why should SEC, make their own. They can't do that. But the path, John Hartwell, for the SEC to get 5 is there. I don't think there's any question about that. But the committee, and you've been on committees before, John, they lock them in a room out in Dallas all weekend, and they have to tell their wives and whatever, and say, hey, look, I've got to stay locked up and eat catered, 5-star meals and watch football all weekend with a bunch of guys. And but it's going to be okay. I'm going to make it. But they do. And people, just like referees, we're human. Do you think with the Big Ten, the Big Ten office is in Chicago, and the SEC office is in Birmingham, and then the NCAA headquarters is in Indianapolis, right in the heart of Big Ten country. The playoff committee, and I was texting this morning with the head of it, the people that work with General Richard Clark, and we're going to get him on this show. We were going to try to do it, but Thanksgiving got in the way. So we're going to have him on probably mid-December. But, John, that's not an easy job, is it?
No, it's not, because it's like being a head coach or being an athletic director or being a politician or CEO of a company. Your fan base, the demographic that is going to weigh in on your decision, you're never going to get, somebody is always going to feel like, oh, you played a favorite here, or this team got screwed. But you've got to go through the process. And, I know this is contradictory to what we talked a little bit about last week. And, hey, there may be some teams out there, which still holds true. There may be some teams who say, hey, I'm better off not being a conference champion, potentially not having to play that extra game and getting ready for the next week. But when you look at the ACC, let's take the ACC for just a second. You've got Miami, SMU, and Clemson arguably out there in that mix. And if Miami loses another game, again, they were rolling along and hit a speed bump. But, whoever, there's probably not going to be more than one ACC team make it. So you better do everything you can to win that conference championship game. So on that side of the ledger, conference championship games do matter. And so there's so many, again, in prior years, you were trying to see what the path to being the final, the four were. Yeah. Now with 12, there's so many more storylines, so many more possibilities. I think it's been an outstanding thing for college football, for FBS football.
Yeah, and there is nowhere else to go. And, and you can see the frustration of SEC fans. South Carolina, for goodness sake, if they finish 9-3, which would mean beating the Wofford Terriers this Saturday, and I will guarantee you they will do that. And then they got to play Clemson at Clemson. We all remember 2 years ago, South Carolina had an incredible finish, beating Tennessee when they were like number 4, 63-38, scored with every possession. They scored a touchdown, except when they ran out of time in the first half. And then they went on the road a week later and beat Clemson 31-30. Matt, if South Carolina finishes 9-3, I don't see them. I still don't see them making the playoff. But that's also going to probably fuel a lot of interest and a lot of new members of their NIL collective. Wouldn't you agree? And I think you can say that to a lot of campuses.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a team that has more momentum right now than South Carolina. You look at what they've done. Would you want to play them right now if you were a playoff team? Would you want to play South Carolina? I don't care if it's away, home, whatever. I think, man, they have tremendous frontline push defensively. They got an exciting quarterback that can run pass. They have run game. They have always got great special teams because of Shane Beamer. I think South Carolina has momentum like no team before. I think I think Florida has a lot of momentum going next year. Now we got to play off this year, but I'm finished this year out. But I'm really excited about some of these teams next year and the growth. And the fact of the matter is, as a coach, I'm excited that it looks like Billy Napier is going to keep his job. And just Florida, give them credit, in my opinion. They should, regardless of the outcome this weekend, they should beat Florida State, go to a bowl game, like you said, Rob, those extra practices, tons of momentum. And we knew when we talked about this in August, guys, we knew the teams that had the tough schedules. We almost called it. The team that's real intriguing to me right now, the matchup of Texas A&M. I think that's a huge matchup. The last weekend. And obviously that's going to determine probably at least one of the teams that goes to the SEC playoff or championship, I'm sorry. And then, honestly, I think Alabama's playing really good football right now. And say what you want, but Georgia is in position to win another national championship. I don't think if Georgia ends up 10, and let's say they got to go somewhere, let's say they play Notre Dame on the road, you think they really care? They don't care. Georgia's going to show up. They're going to line up and they're going to knock you in the mouth. Okay. Yeah. And for everyone that's worried about the seeding, there are some things that have to be worked out. One of which is, I think, I think you should look at, if it gets down to, I'll use this scenario in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Oregon. If they play in the SEC championship game and they're 1-2 prior to that, the loser of that automatically falls to 5. Well, at the end of the day, the committee has to think of a couple things. Like we know we want the Big 12 to have an automatic bid, I think, John, but does it guarantee them being a top 4? I think you give them the automatic bid and you seed them how the committee sees them. So that means if you think they're a 9, they go on the road and play an 8. That's just my opinion. You put the top 4 seeds in those buys. How does the whole Boise State thing play out? Yeah. They're going to end up probably have to playing UNLV, I think, in the championship game. Look at the progress of Tulane. Look at Army. Notre Dame is a huge game this weekend. Guys, this is great. And I know there's always going to be a bubble team, and the SEC, because of the strength of the SEC, is always going to feel like if they got 5, they should have got 6. If they got 4, they should have got 5. I totally get that. But that's everywhere, John, right? You've been on these committees. We're going to have that. There is a in my mind, I've been on committees too. I mean, there's a representation thing that sticks out here as well.
Yeah.
And, even though we see it with the eye test, I can't prove to you that Ole Miss is better than Indiana unless we see them on the field. That's just, I know we're talking a strength of record, but we also can say what happened against Kentucky, Ole Miss. If you're that good, why didn't you win a home game against Kentucky, who's not even going to go to a bowl game? So I can go the counter argument any day of the week on this. I think the SEC deserves 5. It's going to come down to a couple other teams have to lose, though.
Let me bring something up real quick. You just mentioned Ole Miss, Indiana. Remember, was it 2020, Lane Kiffin's first year at Ole Miss? They did beat a number 7 ranked Indiana team in a bowl game, coached by, again, the hottest coach in America, Tom Allen. I'm not sure what he's doing now. I think he's guessing people's weight at the fair or something. I don't know what happened to him. But put him on that list with Tom Herman. He's a juggler now at the carnival. All right, John Hartwell, we got to address some questions because there's some good ones here. Real quick, do you think conference championship games are on at least up for discussion? That because they make so much money, but do you think they're going to go away? There's a lot of questions coming up on that.
Yeah, I understand that. And if you take Big Ten, SEC, you could argue that the teams vying for those spots in those 2 leagues, no, they really don't need the conference championship game. But as I mentioned about, the ACC and some of the other leagues, I do think they're a necessity. But again, here's what I would say. And I know, compared to other leagues, the SEC and the Big Ten are somewhat flush with cash, but nobody in today's world and trying to do the revenue share and everything else, nobody is totally flush with cash in terms of meeting all of the pockets that you're trying to put money in. And that's probably a bad analogy, but that is a true statement there. So I don't think they're going to go away, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with that. Let me throw one other thing in there, and Matt went down this rabbit hole a little bit with, who is going to represent the group of 5? Is it going to be Boise? Is it going to be Army? Is it potentially a Tulane sneaking in the back door? Here's a scenario that I bring up to you. UNLV, it would be hard to argue. And you talk about a guy that's resurrected his career, Barry Odom, what he's done at UNLV, because that program 3-4 years ago when I was in that league was awful, absolutely awful. Obviously playing in the new Raiders Stadium helps a lot. There's some other things that have occurred, but he's done an unbelievable job. But let's just take this scenario. Let's say some wild way that UNLV, emerges, Army goes by the wayside, Tulane loses again, Boise loses to UNLV, and let's say UNLV emerges. Well, all of a sudden, you've got this playoff system going, And let's say Barry Odom, there may be a place in that state that you're in right now, Rob, that there may be a change. And hey, Barry Odom may be high on the totem pole there for taking that job. Is somebody going to, wait and say, oh, hey, I'm going to wait till you get through the playoff process, or I want you to come be our coach now. That could be an interesting dynamic in this whole deal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we've got December 4th coming up, people. December 4th is coming up, and that's the day after my sister Susan's birthday. But that's the signing day, the early signing period. Now, we have a February signing period, and that's really for the coaches that get fired who basically miss the December signing period. I don't like the December signing period. It's a mess, because when you factor that in with the portal and having to re-recruit your team, it's a cluster fudge. I can tell you, I've not talked to a coach that likes it. So looking at some of these issues that you're bringing up, the conference championship games, we're going to Atlanta Friday, going to be in Auburn Saturday for the Texas A&M game. A&M, how good are they on the road versus they're much better at home? There's a lot in play. Again, going into week 13, we don't know. And who's going to play in the Sun Belt Conference Championship? Who's going to play in the Big 12? Hell, last weekend, you talked about BYU, and you said, I've heard some stuff come out of those fans' mouths at games at Provo or wherever that we cannot say on this show. I'll just leave it. The decorum prohibits it, said Douglas Niedermeyer, secretary of the Interfraternity Council and Animal House at Faber College. They get beat by Kansas. Who the hell saw that one coming? Anybody? Matt?
Well, just so you know, Kansas last year was one of the best stories in college football.
They are.
That's number
Lance
one.
Leipold. Yeah.
Number two, I don't know this for a fact because we normally do our research on this show with SEC teams, but I believe their really talented quarterback had been banged up early in the year. I can't prove that right now. I don't have any notes in front of me. But thirdly, I watched that second half of that game. Kansas just flat out at BYU outplayed them. And here's another big game this week. I think Colorado goes to Kansas. What a great story Colorado is. 2 years ago, whether you like him or not, Coach Sanders goes in there, flips the portal upside down, and 2 years later, he has a main straight line finish to get to the Big 12 championship game. They could be in the playoff. And what's ironic about this, you look to a game about 5 weeks ago, guys, Baylor had them beat, and they hit a Hail Mary, and they win that game. And ever since that game, they've just been a different football team. They're playing really, Utah and BYU the week before was just an unbelievable game. BYU got a break late, won the game. I mean, Colorado just destroyed Utah. And you don't do that to Kyle Whittingham football teams. I mean, yes, Colorado has a hard time scoring. Cam Rising, the quarterback, has been hurt. He's out. They scored 49 points, guys. They're legit. Arizona State's one of the best stories in college football, too, that no one talks about. So the beauty of this thing is you're going to get a Big 12 representative. More than likely, I think BYU is fading. It wouldn't shock me if Arizona State beat them this week. I think it's probably going to be Arizona State or Colorado, John, that wins the Big 12.
Yeah, I would agree. And, you talk about coaches having done a good job. Kenny Dillingham out there at Arizona State, the native son. Literally, I interviewed Kenny at one of the times when Utah State was open, and he still looks like he's about 16 years old. That guy can absolutely coach.
He
so,
does.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see the Sun Devils beat BYU this week either.
Well, okay, preseason I read an article, I can't remember where it was, about how BYU would be struggling probably the most of any team in the Big 12, how it wasn't a good fit and all. And what are they, 9-1? It's just hard to predict anymore. Let's say the SEC gets 5, Big 10 gets 4, Big 12 1, ACC 1. And again, that at-large team, is it going to be Boise? You hired John Summerall, or didn't you, at Troy, or helped?
Didn't hire. I was involved. Yeah, I've known John since he was a player at Kentucky. Yeah,
okay.
He
really good coach.
Yeah, another guy that's done an unbelievable job. comes from a great pedigree, and he will have opportunities beyond Tulane. Maybe not this year because it's his first year, but he's the real deal. He will be an elite SEC head coach sooner than later.
And you look at Holman Stadium at Tulane. They've got money. I can promise you that. If you get an MBA from Tulane or a master's in health administration, man, what we're starting to see is this awakening of a lot of schools that have a lot of money that are suddenly going, hey, look at SMU. 7 days, they rang the bell like the Salvation Army, on the corner, raised $150 million last year. That's just for starters. They were just warming up. Highland Park, SMU, they've got a printing press out there. This is a great discussion because you're seeing, and I love it because I'm an SEC guy. I'm an Auburn grad, but I love seeing college football go around the country because it's great for the morale of this country. And everywhere you go, there's this feeling now, hey, if we can raise money, we got a chance to get guys. And I think what's also going to happen is the free market will fix it because people will say that, you know what, maybe I should stick it out here. And they're going to put contracts in here to where people, you can't get paid and just take the money. That's got to be fixed. But so we're going to bring Gary Harris in here in a minute from Tuscaloosa. And he is, along with Rodney Orr from Tighter Insider, they're talking with Kalen DeBoer, and they follow the Alabama program for a long time. Go back earlier this season, the emotions. They lose to Vanderbilt 40-35 October 5th. Lose at Tennessee when DeBoer tried to turn Jalen Milroe into a pocket passer. Every week, guys, the story changes, doesn't it? I mean, you just can't. I don't think they could have drawn it up better with a great Hollywood writer.
It's crazy, Rob, and yes, I'm a college football junkie, even though, I'll watch any college football game there is.
Me too.
I think back to week 0, you talk about SMU. Late at night, I was watching SMU at Nevada. Nevada had SMU dead to rights. SMU had to score twice, I think, in the final 2.5 minutes of the game. If they would have lost to Nevada, their opportunity would have been done right there in the CFP rankings. And you look at them right now, and they're number 13, and they're poised to be in that final 12 as well.
All right, I want to say something here. Just we're all fans too. Chuck McKenzie. There are people, maybe they don't like the coach or whatever, but they're Gator fans or fans of whatever school. And I think you can be. You're just a fan of your school. But I like Chuck. I think he's a smart guy. Let's bring in Gary Harris, man. Tighter Insider TV, WVUA, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa, and Tighter Insider TV. And talk about a place where every single day the discussion is, the focus is, how are we going to win another national championship? And you got a great basketball program. You got the Red Elephant Club. You've got a lot of money coming in. Yeah. And Gary,
I didn't hear you, Rob. I've been going in and I'm driving again, so I got to be careful.
Okay, that's fine. We were just
going
talking
in and
about,
out, but I'm back now. It looks like.
Yeah, we were just talking about the playoffs, the rankings, and how everybody around the country is content and happy with the rankings. There's no disagreement, anything like that. And, it's just. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, great. Yeah, it's going to be worse.
Welcome to the asylum.
Yeah, much worse than with the 4-team, because with the 12-team, you bring so many other teams into play that in a 14 playoff would not even be, considered or even thinking they had a shot. So there's so many more teams now that are in the mix, and so you're going to have more controversy. And I understand it. I mean, there's regional bias, there's conference bias, there's people that think there's anti-bias because of whatever reason, they don't bring TV ratings or they don't do this. So nobody really believes that this thing is, whether that's truth or not, because I don't think these members are purposely trying to upset anybody. And, they're giving up a lot of their time to do this. But I think most people believe that there are agendas here other than just trying to get the 12 best teams in the college football playoff. And with that being the case, it's going to be crazy, and it's a lot of excitement, a lot of interest. There's no doubt about that. But when these final 12 are selected, you're going to have a number of programs that are crying foul.
I want to throw something at you. I see a lot of stuff from Gator fans. Some of them say, why should we be excited over beating a 6-4 LSU team? And I flipped that back to the week before when you talked about what your show would be like Monday morning if Alabama didn't get the win at LSU. Let's face it, beating LSU is a damn big deal. Winning an SEC game is a damn big deal, Gary. You know that. And it's all relative. I think a lot of fans get really frustrated. I think y'all would both agree. And Gary will be back with us.
I'm back. I don't know what's going on. I'm back.
Yeah. But Gary, wouldn't you agree that Florida fans should be grateful for getting a win over LSU, because Alabama fans damn sure celebrated it?
Florida fans ought to be grateful for getting a win over anybody, with the way their season's gone. But that's a huge win for them. That's a gigantic win for Florida. And it gives them some momentum. Once the announcement was made that Billy Napier was coming back, if you're a Florida fan and your coach is coming back, you want your coach to do well. I mean, this isn't a situation now where you can sit here and say, well, I'm pulling for him to lose because I want him to be gone. He's coming back regardless. So why wouldn't you want some positive momentum and some traction? And, and I tell you, this is not a layup for Ole Miss this Saturday by any means, going into Gainesville. So, if you could beat LSU and then beat Ole Miss back to back, I mean, all of a sudden your season looks a lot differently to you than it did just a couple of weeks ago. So I thought it was a big win. And this is still a pretty good LSU football team, as we're seeing, and we've talked about on this program over and over again. The old coaching saying of going 1-0 every week is more true than it's ever been. You've just got to try to find a way to win the game you're playing that week, regardless of who you are, what conference you're in, who you're playing. It's hard to win. And for most teams, if you don't bring your A game, particularly if you're in the conference game, you can get beat. So, LSU is still a pretty good football team. I thought that was a great win for Florida, and I don't understand if Florida fans are not enjoying it.
Well, and again, you're right. And Florida's got, they got a massive fan base like Alabama. They've got money, and they got a quarterback that would get you excited. John, Matt, jump in here with Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa. On the way down McFarland Boulevard. Where are you?
Well, I'm on 359 right now.
Honk if you go by a Taco Casa.
I mean, Gary makes a great point. You can say there's obviously a separation if you look at all 134 teams in FBS football. But as you break it down league by league, there really are no layups. I mean, it's every week is a grind. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about our game going Saturday to Jonesboro. Huge game for us to get to 6 and get bowl eligible. But in any league, if you say, hey, I'm gonna rest some guys today, or you've got some guys who say, oh, we can just kind of lace them up, put on the helmet, shoulder pads, and go out there and win, you're gonna get embarrassed because of there are players on every team in college football. And, you go back to the NIL thing. That's why most of the larger staffs have 6 or 8 guys who do nothing but review film every week of other teams' games the prior week to see who they're going to target in the portal.
Yeah. Gary, the atmosphere in Tuscaloosa, you're in touch, you and Rodney, with the Alabama fans. You've followed the program for a long time. The range of emotions this year has been all over the place. Where are they now among Alabama fans as they get ready to go to Norman, Oklahoma for Saturday against the Sooners? Because that's a program, again, you're talking 2 of the top 6 winningest programs in the history of college football, and Oklahoma struggling this year. They'd like nothing better than to take on Alabama and get a win. I don't see it happening, but Alabama's got to be ready for Saturday, don't they?
Yeah, the emotions right now are really positive, obviously. I mean, I think there was so much regret and disappointment over the way the team played at Vanderbilt and at Tennessee. But, they have bounced back from that. In the last 3 games against Missouri and LSU and Mercer have been their best 3-game stretch of the season. And really has been a lot of dominant football. Obviously, Mercer's FCS, but they're a good FCS team. But to shut out Missouri 34-0 and to beat LSU 42-13 in Baton Rouge, the vibe's positive. And I think the feeling is right now that if Alabama wins these next 2 games, they're going to be in the college football playoff. And at the same time, I think there's still excitement here. I know a lot of other fan bases don't feel that way, but I think at Alabama, it's about winning championships. And I've always said, I think winning the Southeastern Conference Championship is a special deal. And Nick Saban reiterated that. He talked about what an incredible venue, the Georgia Dome and then Mercedes-Benz Stadium is, and what winning an SEC championship means. So I think Alabama fans want to go to the SEC championship game. I don't sense that. Lane Kiffin can say what he wants, and maybe among coaches that is true, but when you get to the point where you're saying you don't want to play for an SEC championship, that's disturbing to me. But at the same time, I do think what you just said, Rob, is the truth. I mean, you're going in to play a proud program. You're not going in to play just anybody. You're going in to play a program the caliber of your program as far as history and championships and what it means. Football is important in Norman, Oklahoma, and they've got 1 conference win. But they've got coming off a bye, and this is an opportunity for them to change the trajectory of their season. And they're going to be ready to go. It's a night game, and they're going to be pumped up. And if you don't play well, and I'm talking about Alabama, if you go out there and you don't play well, you can lose that football game. There's no doubt about it. I'm with you, Rob. I think Alabama will win the game, but hopefully past experience has taught them what they need to do to get ready to play on the road. And the performance at Baton Rouge maybe will be, fresh in their minds and knowing what that type of preparation did for them. If they're ready to go, I think they'll win the game. But you can't just show up out there in Norman, Oklahoma and say, hey, we're here to play football. We're going to win. You got to respect that team and that program. And defensively, I still think they're pretty good. They're really good against the run. I know their passing numbers are skewed, but I think a lot of that has to do, too, that when you're a defense, as you guys know, and your offense is struggling the way Oklahoma's offense has, your defense over the course of a game, it's just hard to continually hold up. So I think a lot of their defensive numbers come from the fact that they're tired and they're worn down. And, it's just hard over 60 minutes to continue to play at a high level. But I have a lot of respect for their defense. And offensively, I think they're playing better. With Jackson Arnold back for a second go-round, they've still got Michael Hawkins available. So I think the feeling here is that Alabama should win the football game, but I think the feeling is they should have won it, at Vanderbilt and at Tennessee, and they didn't. So, you got to go out and play.
Matt?
Yeah, Gary, it's good to be on with you, man. I had a question for you because I don't even know if you can answer this question. Assuming Bama wins out, which I agree, I think they will. And I think they'll win convincingly this weekend. But let's look at the loser of the A&M Texas game. That puts a log jam of teams at 2 losses. What's Alabama's path right now to get to that title game, assuming they win out? Does it matter? Obviously, probably Texas may be a slight favorite. I'm looking ahead to that game against A&M, but it's in College Station. What are the have they had any breakdown yet of tiebreakers yet, Gary?
Yeah, the way I understand it, Matt, is that if there are multiple 2-loss teams, then head-to-head goes out the window because, Georgia will beat Tennessee will beat Alabama, so forth and so on. So what I've read, and my understanding is, let's say you have 4 2-loss teams, is that it would then go to your conference opponent's winning percentage. And what I put together was that if Missouri splits against Arkansas and Mississippi State, or obviously if they win both, then Alabama's winning percentage opponent-wise would be the highest, and that they would go in among the 2-win teams. Now, if Missouri were to lose those 2 games, the way I read it, believe it or not, is that Georgia's winning percentage would be the best, and that Georgia would go in over Alabama.
All right.
would think would at least be State and Arkansas, then I read it that Alabama would be the 2-loss team that would go opposite, whether it's another 2-loss team or a 1-loss team, as that could be a possibility too.
Well, Gary, I think, my 4 teams preseason were Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Missouri. I'm still alive, very much alive with 3 of them. Missouri, the Turkey Vultures are feasting on them. They didn't make the cut. But I like what this guy, Van Durr, one of our viewers, says. Almost every college football player was once the best somewhere else, meaning the best at the high school level. When they get to college, how do you handle being one of 100 or 125 that were the best? But, tradition never graduates, as Haywood Harris, legendary sports information director at Tennessee, said. And, Matt, I know you got to check out here.
Back.
Okay. Matt, I know you got to check out. You said it at 50 after, but
I got a couple minutes here.
Yeah, okay. But that's important that guys have a lot of pride.
Yeah, getting back to that question you asked about. Hey, Gary, getting back to the question you asked about that. Every football player that comes to a school like Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, they were obviously very, very elite at their level to get to that opportunity. But as a coach, you don't know what you got till you see a kid every day. And that's why I go back to, just watching clips, Gary, of like Coach Saban's practices. It separates the elite from the very good to the good. I mean, you have to do it every day. And just watching Coach Saban on game day, it's just been great insight for me. Gary, I'm sure you have a plethora of stories, but just why he's so successful is because it's a day-to-day business, man. You have got to perform at a certain level every day to earn that opportunity to play on the field. And I think that's what separates these high school players to become pros is it's how you handle your day-to-day.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And getting back to what Rob said about, how they handle it, some of them don't handle it well anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see the transfer portal fill up so quickly. I think to Matt's point about what Saban was able to do, and it's more difficult now because of the mindset that these kids have about, coming out of high school, and they've got handlers and they've got representatives and telling them that, they should be ready to play. And if they don't play, they're not willing, many of them anymore, to be developed and wait over time and be redshirted. And the way Saban was able to do it was recruit high caliber athletes, class on top of class, stack them, and then let them understand that you'll play when you're ready to play, and you'll play when you understand that we play to a standard, and we play. There's a system in place, and if you allow us to develop you, it'll be better for you in the long run because you'll save on your body. If you go to some of these programs that aren't very good, and they throw you out there as a freshman, especially if you're, say, a running back or a quarterback, and you're not ready to play, and you're getting hit, and you're getting hurt, and you're losing your confidence, here you're going to be developed. You'll be healthy, and then when you get your chance to shine, you got all the NFL eyes on you, and you're going to win. And you might only have 1 year here that you're a starter, but that'll be enough to propel you onto the NFL. And it was just a brilliant system based on the player developing on and off the field. But now the problem is I think you got a generation of young men now that come out of high school that don't see it that way. And all they're focused on is how much money can I make? How quickly can I play? And how soon can I get to the NFL? And they're always chasing something other than just trying to develop themselves on and off the field. So I think that's going to be harder for coaches to do. I think Saban was the best at it, Matt, as you alluded to. But it's going to be much more difficult now for coaches because this really is, we talk about it game to game every week, trying to find a way to win. Well, in terms of roster, in terms of your program, it's year to year. These rosters are going to roll over even at the really good football programs to the point now where I don't know that you can look at long-term program building the way that you did even 5 years ago.
Yeah. Quinnen Williams was a perfect example. Pat Dye Jr. told me, he said, Rob, Coach Saban called me and said, Quinnen Williams. And I said, who? And he was the number 3 pick in the draft. He played, I think, 9 or 10 games.
Yeah,
he
redshirted.
Pat Jr. Works with Coach Saban, did a lot over the years. And everything you said, Gary, is true. I mean, it's just you have to work your way. Eventually you work hard enough, your time will come. And over $2 billion worth of NFL contracts from Saban's players. I think that says a lot about, what he does as a coach and everything. Gary, I know you've got to bounce out to your show. Who you got coming on the show this morning?
Well, I got Ellis Johnson. We do the Falcons. Yeah, we do the Falcons report on Thursday with D. Orlando Ledbetter from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Falcons now are stumbling. Imagine that. And then Jeff Spiegel, sports anchor at ABC 3340.
Love it. You ought to put on a clinic on how to do it right because you're one of the best. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Gary. Take care.
Matt, we lost John Hartwell. Aliens got him.
I think he did an Irish goodbye.
Yeah,
he had to go.
I know.
Yeah.
Being an athletic director, you never know what that phone call is going to be. So it could be anything. But Matt, look.
A couple of got tired of the propaganda, Rob. I know what you're saying. Bob Poole. Look, this is an SEC show. This is a college football show. It's hard not to talk about all of college football this year. I don't know how you just have that conversation and not talk about what else is going on. So forgive us,
yes,
for bringing entertainment every day of the week, but we're doing our best. So enjoy the free show. Now we can resume to our regular scheduled program.
Yeah, and Matt, and again, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm an Auburn grad, married to a Tennessee fan. With now Mallory, the oldest one, Alabama, and everybody else Auburn, and I'm doing my partner is a Gator. You can't. This is as good as it gets talking about the SEC. And Matt,
you can't call me your partner, dude. No, we got to come up with a better
executive producer.
There you go.
And the brain trust. Jake Wimberly joins us right now. ESPN 105.9. Matt Dean, I know you got to go. I will call you right after the show.
Take care, guys. Great to see you.
Matt. Never sounded so good, Mr. Dean.
Yeti Blue. ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in Jackson, Mississippi, the capital city, the bold new city on the Pearl River in Madison County. I've done that heat wave triathlon out there in Ridgeland a few times at the Ross Barnett Reservoir, and they were talking to us about 5 a.m. before the swim, and they said, look, don't stray far off the course. There are a lot of alligators up at their dam. At the lock, just be careful. Stay in groups. I had one of my best swims ever. I'll just tell you that. How you doing, man?
Good. I hope I'm on the right day because the email.
What day is it? I don't even know anymore.
Usually Thursday. So I said, let me just jump in here and see what Rob and Brendan are doing.
Yeah, just come on and come to the living room and hang out. We're always.
Brendan lives in that chair. He's like.
Never you want to talk? Let's pop in. I'll pop in.
Yeah, let's hear your thoughts, man. Let her rip because. I love having you on the show, and always honored to be on your show. That is an electric show. My wife said, man, Matt, she loves listening to. We were driving down to Auburn through that Birmingham traffic. Imagine that at a gridlock last Friday on the way to Auburn. But let's talk about your thoughts on the rankings, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, all things in the Magnolia State.
And our show topic today would just send SEC sends 5 teams to the college football playoffs. Question mark?
It's interesting because the great enemy of college football has become Indiana all of a sudden, right? I mean, does Indiana deserve it? I mean, the strength of schedule, they're going to get killed by Ohio State. We'll see what happens this weekend. First stepping into the state of Mississippi, for Mississippi State, I had a chance to, MC the Mississippi High School Football Mr. Football Awards yesterday for the Mississippi High School Activity Association, and 3 of those guys are committed to Mississippi State and seem to be really excited. Camario Taylor's a quarterback out of Knoxville County, very big guy. Now, Georgia's come in. They've offered him late. For Mississippi State and Jeff Levy, right now it's about finishing, doing the best you can, but then recruiting. And, we'll see if there's some changes made on that coaching staff after the season, after the Egg Bowl next week. But for Mississippi State, I think, and Jeff Levy, it's all about next year. It's about the transfer portal. It's about, finding some guys that can make them competitive next year. For Ole Miss, everything's on the table. We know that, right? I mean, they moved up in the rankings, but they cannot go down and lose to Florida this weekend. If they lose to Florida, that's it for them. They're going to be, they'll have to settle for a Music City Bowl or something to that effect. So, but this Ole Miss team, guys, looks to be, more dialed in than they were in the first part of the year. Rob, you and I've talked about this. Yeah. After the Kentucky loss, after the LSU loss, I just didn't think Ole Miss had a kill switch. They didn't have a finishing move, so to speak, if you're a fighter. They go to Arkansas, something changed, and they blow the doors off Arkansas.
Yeah.
Then that Georgia game was not even as close as that score was. So I think Ole Miss is dialed in. We'll see. Florida obviously is a team that's playing really good too, but everything is in front of the Rebels right now.
This is, and I tell you what, we got a lot of people excited, a lot of comments on here. Bob, I drink decaf coffee. It keeps me mellow. Go Gators. We're covering all 16 SEC schools.
There's a lot of wonderful decaffeinated brands on the market these days, Bob. They're fantastic.
My wife likes cold coffee. and I want to say something real quick. Also, about all of our sponsors, folks, check them out, sidelines.live on our website. Winter Timber Outdoors. Duck season starts in 48 hours if you're keeping track, and I am. Winter Timber Outdoors based in Athens, Alabama. They're going to grow in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. They broke ground last week on a new store in Auburn, Alabama. All your shooting sports, ducks, deer, pheasant, quail, dove, grouse, geese, they've got them all. They've got deer stands. They've got all the food, the supplies that you need, decoys, incredible selection of outdoor gear. Big Sitka dealer, I promise you that. Waiters, they have it all. Over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store with a staff expertly trained. Kenny Winter, his COO, Dylan Monroe, great people involved. They've been around 5 years at that store in Athens, Alabama. We are really proud to have them as a sponsor. And speaking of being on point and on target, Jake, let's talk, in your opinion, your matrix that you came up with before the season in the college football playoff rankings. How are you holding up compared to what the folks on the playoff committee are putting out right now?
As the old boy would say down here in Central Mississippi, fair to middling, right? We're fair to middling. So, Oregon, I picked Oregon and Texas to play for the whole thing. And I still feel good about that. I mean, Oregon, kind of sleptwalked through Wisconsin last week. Texas, and, that's another thing. A lot of people's talking about Texas. We get into strength of schedule this time of year. It's so hard to compare everybody's schedule, relative to one to another. And it's always going to be different. But I still feel good about Texas and Oregon. Miami is a team that I had winning the ACC. I still feel that they can do that. The Big 12 was kind of a crapshoot. I had Central Florida winning the Big 12, but I don't know that anybody is going to get the Big 12 right, because your favorites in Arizona, Utah, and Kansas State, all outside of Kansas State, is out of this thing. And then I had actually Ohio State winning the Big 10, beating Oregon in the Big 10 championship. So everything looks really, really healthy right now as far as projections are concerned. Alabama, a little bit better than I thought they would be this year. Here's the deal with Alabama. We know this. If Jalen Milroe can get out in space and run, they're tough to beat. If you can shut him down, then you're going to beat him probably. So I don't know how many teams the SEC gets in, guys. I mean, I think Ole Miss is in. I think Georgia's in. As of today, I think Bama's in. Texas is in. Then it comes down to Texas A&M and Tennessee. Can we get those two in? If Texas A&M beats Texas next week and then loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game, I don't know that they get in. So it's going to be fascinating to see this Indiana game coming up this weekend. Everybody's going to be watching. If Ohio State blows the doors off Indiana, there's going to be a massive outcry that Indiana shouldn't get in. I think they likely still probably will get in. But it's going to be fascinating to see over the next 2 weeks.
All right. When you look at these matchups, Texas A&M plays at Auburn Saturday. Auburn, first night game of the year. Auburn's defense is top 15, top 20. Then they got to play Texas the next week. You don't know where their focus is. They'll be ready to play. Got some folks out in Texas that watch this show. Jimmy McDavid, he played there. I went to high school with him. He walked on, and got a lot of respect for him because being a walk-on is tough. Questions about Texas's strength of schedule, yet you look at their defense, and their defense is one of the best in the country week in and week out. Where do you see the weakness in Texas? Offense, defense, or special teams? Any of the above or none of the above?
No, I think there's some weaknesses there. And I had Joe Cook on with Inside Texas on 3 this week, and he talked about that defense and how good this defense is and how they went back and did a lot of research. I mean, it is a national championship type defense that they have. The question marks that I have for Texas is along the offensive front and their ability to run the football effectively in the playoff, because we know, I mean, it's still going to come down. Can you run the football and can you play good defense? Obviously, you got to throw it and pace of play and all that. But, Texas lost a couple running backs in the preseason. They've been able to mask that up to this point. I think if you can shut Texas's run game down, Now, granted, Quinn Ewers can beat you, but at least make them one-dimensional. I mean, Georgia kind of made them one-dimensional. That's one of the things that Georgia did when they went over to Austin and won. So that would be the weaknesses for Texas. As Texas A&M, look, this is not a surefire win at Auburn. They've got to go get a win this weekend. Auburn could play spoiler this weekend. If they beat Texas A&M, they literally knock them out of this thing. So, but I know in the state of Texas, they're wanting this thing to line up to where it is a mano-a-mano mega event next Saturday night between Texas and Texas A&M. And I actually selfishly hope that's what we get.
All right, so let's break it down. In the SEC right now, in contention for the playoff, we have Alabama. We definitely have Georgia. We have Ole Miss. That's 3. We have Tennessee 4, Texas 5, and Texas A&M 6. And the team to consider to be the worst in the league, Vanderbilt, is already bowl eligible and playing in Baton Rouge Saturday. Show me a path to victory for the Mighty Doors. Boom, Cumberland, as they say up in Davidson County, Metro Government of Davidson County in Nashville.
Let's see how LSU plays, and here's what I mean.
Yeah.
Have they mailed it in? Have they mailed it in? And not necessarily Brian Kelly. Have the players mailed it in? This is not what LSU wanted this year, and boy, they have taken it on the chin. And I think if Vanderbilt goes down there and they just play sound football and they don't turn the football over, they're going to play hard. They've shown you that. I think they got a shot to take this thing to the fourth quarter, because I'm not so sure that some of these players in Baton Rouge have not mailed it in. And if they have, Vanderbilt could be sitting pretty come Saturday.
Jake, I just wanted to say that I'm of course you're the lone voice in the forest here, which is what I've been sort of trying to say, and not say it without making everybody sort of kill your buzz, dude. Because I'm glad, I'm a Gator fan, glad for the win, but I got that vibe. I got second half vibe that they just don't want to play for all these guys. Like, maybe I'm just too old, or like old hippie from Colorado, but I'm a vibe guy. Like the vibe on the sidelines at LSU was I'm
it matters.
50. I'm allowed to say I'm old at 50. Fuck that.
You're not old.
It's old to me, dog. I'm in the 5th floor. 5th floor is old.
Right.
All right, I'll take it. So I'm saying I'm looking at the sidelines, and Brian Kelly, it's like he's done his thing. I'm not gonna get into that. I just felt exactly what you're saying. Are they done? They felt done. Florida looks great, yes, but they also looked like everyone was sort of not half speed, but maybe 3/4 sometimes. I don't know if this is going to be indicative of what we see going forward in college football when teams are sort of like at the end, but I know it's they're out of the playoffs or whatever. But the point is that I got that feeling that they were done.
Well, I would say that every team has, it depends on how you. Right. Every team's going to have some of this, especially in the day and age of where we're at today. Without contracts and without, multiple year contracts and, the collectives and name, image, and likeness and all this stuff, guys are probably sitting there going, man, do I really want to be here? And probably talking to their buddies on other teams, man, hey, look, jump in the portal. You maybe can come over here. There's probably a lot of that chatter going on. So you got to wonder when the prize is gone, do they start looking for prizes elsewhere?
Mm. Well,
is that human nature?
I'll say,
yeah, I think so.
Well, and speaking of, and I want to say another thing about Landers, and then Jake, I've got a series of questions for you. Landers Ford, we're proud to have them as a sponsor, the number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South. They're everywhere in the Mid-South. And no matter where you are watching this show, take your phone, take a picture of that QR code, take as many as you can. We love it when people do it. They will deliver vehicles anywhere, cars, trucks, and SUVs. LandersFordMemphis.com is the website. They're open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., okay? Service and sales. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager, our good friend out there. He will direct you to a salesman. They've got all kinds of offers right now. The Escape Active, you see right there, $67.50 off MSRP, Black Friday special. They've got, my God, these Broncos with the Sasquatch package. You gotta drive one of these.
I want
things.
that ride.
Yeah. And MJ bought one with the Sasquatch package, and it's got the big tires.
I feel like they could,
and it drives so.
I heard.
Well, they drive so well. And,
no,
and
but
I'm an
Landers
F-150.
delivers. I thought their cars are something cool, like you could get them or order them.
Well, they'll deliver them. If you buy one, you can do it online. You can talk to them and get it done online. They'll deliver anywhere to you. And they're all over the Mid-South. Collierville High School, Houston High School, they're Landers stadiums. When they play each other in the playoff game Friday, it's the Landers Bowl, okay? Great people to work with, and they are invested, again, all over the Mid-South. We have listeners and viewers all over the place. Just remember this. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. Great people to work with. Jake,
you might have fallen asleep there, but there you go.
Right, you go, Jake.
Sorry. Yeah, no worries.
So, Jake, let's do some rapid fire here. And bottom line, you look in the SEC, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. Top to bottom, how strong is the league? Because I think it is top to bottom stronger than it has been in recent history.
Yeah, no, I think for sure the league is extremely strong. You look top to bottom. I mean, half the league, up until even last week, you had Missouri that was at least mathematically alive in the playoff. They're not going to get in, but the league is extremely tough. I mean, when you look at, for instance, the Big Ten, and this is where, all of this commentary on how many teams should get in or not. The Big Ten, I mean, realistically, they have Ohio State and they have Oregon that are contenders for the national championship.
Yeah.
I don't think Penn State, love James Franklin, but I just don't think that they are built to make a run. Indiana's not built to make a run, and then there's everybody else. The ACC, I don't think there's anybody in the ACC that can win the national championship. I think Miami's a great story. I think SMU is a wonderful story. And look, they may be a team coming up here in the next few years that really takes a stranglehold or puts a stranglehold on that conference. The Big 12, there's nobody. So, I think when you look at Oregon and you look at Ohio State and then you come over to the SEC, Texas, you can make an argument that they can make a run to the national championship. Alabama, if they can stay healthy and scheme it right with Milroe, they can make a run. Ole Miss, I think, is built to make a run. Yep. I don't know about Tennessee. I don't know about Texas A&M. But I feel like the league as a whole is as strong as it's ever been.
All right, let's do a comparison real quick. DJ Lagway, freshman out of Texas, player of the year, 5-star. He's a 6-star. Okay, compare him as another freshman quarterback who played late last year, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. Who would you take if you had a choice? Can't take them both.
I would probably lean towards Lagway now that I've seen both of them play, just because, I mean, he's built a little different physically. I mean, you look at Nico, he's a great quarterback. He's got a really great upside. He throws it well. He's just such a small guy. And I know that sounds crazy. Lagway's a guy that could pull the ball down. He can get it on the edge. I mean, he can make all the throws too. So, I tend to lean more towards a bigger physical quarterback, if at all possible, especially if we're talking about trying to play 11 on 11. And we got a quarterback that we can get out in space and he can run.
Yeah, Tim Tebow, physically one of the most impressive quarterbacks, just so tough and strong. I think Lagway has some of that, but God, he's got an arm. Jake, did you see that back shoulder pass he threw?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. The coaches can't say throw a back shoulder pass and let the guy catch it. You can't coach that, can you? Can't coach 6'6". You can't coach Herschel Walker. You can't coach Bo Jackson. God, that's God's deal.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. All right. So in the last few minutes here, folks, you cover the SEC. You put out so many great charts and matrix. And for the record, everybody, last year Jake's pick was hail to the victors, the Michigan Wolverines. And I picked them to beat Washington last year for the game. I said, I think they're going to kill them. People thought I was crazy. Physical line of scrimmage play wins. In college football right now in the SEC, you just reeled off 6 teams. You're in court. You rested your case just now. This thing's going to jury. You know what the jury is? The next 2 weekends. But we're going into week 13, Jake. How much fun is it doing shows like what we do with all this going on? I wake up at 4:30. And Brendan and I both do, and I know you do. There's so much to talk about, and I love these comments from the viewers because they're very smart people.
Oh, look, I was having a conversation with a couple clients yesterday, and they off of work stuff. They mentioned, they said, man, how fun has it been this year that we are in late November and we're still talking about who's going to make the playoff, who is actually the favorite to win the national championship, because there's not one team that's head and shoulders above everybody else right now.
No.
I mean, you could make a case. I think you can make a case for about 8 different teams. Look, we forgot Notre Dame in that conversation too, Rob.
Yeah.
They play defense. They are built a lot like Michigan last year. I don't know that they're that good, but Notre Dame is going to have a say in this. We're literally about to put the turkeys in the oven, and we're still talking about who's going to make a college football playoff. It's fantastic.
You know, in the past, it was don't bring up politics and religion at Thanksgiving dinner. Now it's going to be don't bring up the college football playoff committee, you know, because everybody's got a Notre Dame relative if they know any Catholics. So it's just awesome. I absolutely love it. Look, folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We're the most blessed people. Find ways every day to go out and make the world a better place. It starts with you. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Jake Wimberly, tell them how they can follow you. And for executive producer Brendan Martin, who, if you know what's going on, and Jake, you knew what a producer does, Brendan is unbelievable. These charts, these graphs. And next week, if you got some charts and graphs, which I have a feeling you will, email them to the B and we'll put them on. And folks, watch the Buddy Martin show tonight. You got to watch it. orangeandbluebloods.com, 9 p.m. Eastern, as it is every Monday through Thursday, right here on this channel. Jake, tell them how.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me as always. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Jake Wim. And then, of course, grab the show 3 to 6 each and every day. You can stream it if you're outside of Mississippi on thezone1059.com, or just search on any of the streaming platforms, iHeart, TuneIn, ESPN 1059 in Jackson. And, of course, we're on the FM dial as well.
Boom. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much. Hey,
see
everybody. I'm heading out to Hewlett and Dunn today. You need to do that as well. Get all kind of Christmas gifts and everything. It is a great time to be out there, open every Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And look, duck season in 48 hours, web-footed kennels. Web-footed kennels. My man, Chris Aiken, love this guy. He trains. He's got 8 people on his staff that help him. Time to get your dog ready was a long time ago. But this year you may be hunting with friends and you want a dog, go to Web-Footed Kennels. He does select breeding of the best dogs in America. And I'm wearing right now, this is a pullover, a Stetson from Hewlett and Dunn. Try to wear something from Hewlett and Dunn every day. Great people to work with, man. God bless America. Good night, John Boy. We'll see you in the morning. We'll batten off with Jordan Hill on the Dogs. Take care.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.